Kia ora mai, it's Mike Atkinson. This presentation is going to be looking at rock and abseil instruction, and this particularly an overview. So the three main areas looking at here are what groups of instructors need to do beforehand, so planning, meet and greet once the clients arrive, and some key tips on gear fitting with the harness and helmet. Primarily designed for around the Nazoya Leader Awards, preparing students to sit those awards. Getting together as a group of instructors prior to working with the clients is really important. Key things to discuss are clarifying the roles of who's doing what, who's going to be doing the setup at the crag, who's going to be doing the meet and greet, who's going to be doing the briefing at the crag, who's going to be running a review, just establishing those roles. What client information have you got so far? What are the age expectations for the session? What are the medical issues you need to know about prior to them arriving? Goals and objectives for the session for the clients. So most goals are objectives for these introductory sessions are it's obviously a safe session, they're learning some new skills, and it's more holistic education around learning a little bit about the environment as well. So that might be to do with geology, rock climbing history, flora and fauna, some weather, just building that in as part of naturally occurring, that naturally occurs during the session. Organising the gear, ropes, spinners, slings, that might be collating the gear or just creating a list of gear that you're going to need. First aid kit, making sure that there's going to be one available, what's the weather forecast for the session, communication devices, and a risk analysis management system or SAP, safety action plan, same thing. They're just a paper-based system of systematically going, identifying the risks and hazards for rock climbing and abseiling, and what are your management strategies to mitigate against those risks and hazards. So that's just probably a lot of stuff that you already know and have been taught, but it's a good way of going back to the basics and making sure that you're doing all the basics really well. So this planning stage is a really important part of any teaching session. When the clients do arrive, meet and greet is a really important part of the session. So making sure that someone is clearly identified to warm and friendly, greet them in a warm and friendly manner, and walking as soon as they arrive, either at the crag or at the gear shed, that's you're making them feel welcome. All right, talking to the person in charge, and that should usually be a teacher. Just clarifying an overview of the day and session, just checking that you're all on the same page, establishing the goals, getting to know the names of the students and who they are, so a little bit about themselves and whether they've climbed before or not. Medical information, just checking their gear, making sure that they've got some warm clothing, food, water, and the toilet, so making sure it's usually that last no toilets at the crag, so making sure that briefing the clients that they last opportunity to go to the toilet at the gear shed or nearby at the crag. Once the meet and greet is done, then getting clients into gear fitting, harness and helmet. So starting with the harness, so getting them around in a circular group and showing them the harness, holding up by the waist with the leg loops dangling down, making sure that there are no twists in either the waist or the leg loops, and then stepping into the harness like it's a big pair of pants. And key thing is to remember is that the waist belt is fitted firmly. That's one of the, probably the key thing to remember about harness fitting, is that waist belt is a snug fit. Now, a way to test that is once it is above their hips and outside of all their clothing, to pull it nice and tight, the adjustment strap on the waist, and if they slide their hand flat down past their belly button, past the waist belt of the harness, create a fist, and then try and pull that fist back up through the waist belt. They shouldn't be able to do that. So as said before, harness needs to go on the outside of all the clothing. and pull the waist belt above the hips, and keep that waist belt nice and tight. Then finally adjust the leg loops. Getting everyone a helmet is also really important, a well-fitting helmet. So making sure that people do have there are different sizes heads around, so making sure that key thing here is when they've got the helmet on and adjusted the cradle, the inside harness bit of the helmet, that it's adjusted snugly on their head, that if they move their head around quite quickly, that it doesn't the helmet moves with the head, it doesn't slide around, and especially when they look backwards and the forehead isn't exposed. So the top of the helmet should fit about middle of the forehead and not slide back when it's moved around a bit. Adding a piece of tape to the front of the helmet, so putting a piece of tape here, and there might be duct tape or masking tape, and then writing their name with a pen on that. A good way of making sure you know whose helmet is what, and also a good way of remembering their names. And final bit of advice for running these sessions is be organised. Do not try and wing it. Take a notebook with you and have key points written down that you can refer to if needed. There's no shame in especially when you're standing in front of a group, to stop and pull out and just check that you've covered everything. Better that than not covering a key aspect that you've missed. So don't be ashamed to have a notebook with you with key points written down. And finally, the energy is contagious. The more energy you put into this and to being enthusiastic and motivated about what you're doing, then that will rub off onto the clients and give them a much better experience as well. Have fun out there.